Hi. So in this feature, what I want to talk about are the legendaries that are coming to Legion. We've had a lot of news out this week in terms of data mined information. The talent tree's been the most interested to me. I've gone through the retribution ones. I'm planning on doing a video where I'm sort of comparing different classes at the end of this week or at the weekend. But I want to look at legendaries for now. The reason for this is a bit of karma, really. I am absolutely overjoyed in most cases for 95% of looking at the new abilities and new talent trees and all the rest of it. It's an excellent, complete strip down of the way classes play, and I think much for the better. So to balance all the good news, I want to focus on something that I'm looking at as a bit of bad news coming with Legion. Now, there's no doubt about it, there's a lot of really great features coming in Legion. I am hugely optimistic, and no amount of disappointment over Warlords of Draenor, which was actually not as disappointing for me as it is for some, because the raiding at least was good. But I think we can all be very optimistic for Legion. It sounds like there's a lot of really great features, and it sounds like they're already fleshed out enough to the point where we don't have to worry too much about the, oh yeah, we wanted to do that, but we couldn't quite make it work. It does sound like they've actually got a lot of this stuff sort of working. Yes, there's still plenty to do on it. The game is not due for release for over half a year, realistically. But legendaries, problem with legendaries, we've always had them, haven't we? Right from the start of the game. They initially would just be an infinitesimally small drop chance of raid bosses. So only a very few percent of the player base would have access to them anyway. But they did make the people who got them extremely powerful. You could argue not as big a deal in 40-man raiding where there was less pressure on your raid spot. When it got down to 25-man, bit more pressure, you could argue. And then they sort of changed it in Wrath and Cataclysm. It was like it was a bit more like Atish that you had towards the end. That was Nax was a bit of a model for things to come. In that, after TBC anyway, in that you would get your legendary. They were only there for certain classes. You know, only certain classes could even use that legendary. But you would get them because it was based on drops of certain things. It was just a case of who would get them first. But if you were in a guild with decent progress, you would all get it eventually. But you just might be lower down in the pecking order. Then with MOP, we had the old welfare legendary, so everyone could get it, regardless of whether you raided or not, as long as you would at least do LFR. We've had that in WOD as well. The only distinction being that if you do something a bit above LFR, you do at least normal mode, you can upgrade your ring. So that's 695 eventually. Some people are getting to that point now. It'll be another month before I do. And that's about it. With this way of doing legendaries as well, it's like you all get the same legendary. It all ends up being the same thing, with the exception that it's 60 item levels higher if you at least do normal mode now with the ring. But raiders would actually get a bit of a head start on it. You'd end up getting it first because you could do your raiding and be gathering your bits for it before LFR came out. LFR doesn't come out at the same time as the raid, and then they only bring one wing out every couple of weeks as well. So your raiders do get a bit of a head start. The way it's working in Legion, it's going to be completely the other way around. You'd actually think casual players will have the advantage because these are just drops off mobs out in the world. There's no suggestion they're complete world drops because it has been hinted at that they are farmable. Now, farmable means they have to drop off specific mobs in a specific area. So straight away that brings the problem of, okay, competition for those mobs when you go to that area. So there's going to have to be, you would think, some sort of phasing situation where if there's so many players in an area, they've got to phase it to create a new one. And they've got to up the respawn of the mobs. So you don't want to have some poor bugger in a position where they're running around like a blue ass fly for half an hour and maybe being able to catch 3 mobs. Now, this is where perhaps this open tap thing it comes in. I've mentioned this before. They are having a sort of limited open tap situation, but it only works for the first 3 or 4 players that tag a mob or something like that. So if you've got absolutely loads, trying to hit something as soon as it spawns before it dies really quickly, you're still in a bit of trouble there. But anyway, let's put that aside. Let's say they do phase these areas. Let's say the respawn time's fine. So you can farm these mobs at a reasonable rate. How long is it going to be, on average, because there's an average here, before you can get these items? Because it is RNG, you will get someone who will get a legendary the second boar they kill, before they're even level 101. And you will get someone who has killed 10,000 of those boars 3 months later and they haven't got it yet. Both, you know, ends of the bell curve there. What's it going to be like in the middle? What's the average? Don't know. We don't know. What we do know is that we are going to need these. Because, I mean, imagine we have a little bit of disparity now in the RNG of, for raiders, I'm thinking of or anyone who does any sort of content where the gear is important. Warforged and sockets. So you could have someone on the one hand, you could have two people who've basically got the same stuff at the same level, heroic, mythic, whatever. And one of them has been really lucky and got a load of Warforged stuff. Okay, so they're going to higher item level, slightly better. You could have, you know, big difference. You could have someone who's got like no sockets in their gear whatsoever. Someone else with the same item level has got like 10 sockets. Both extremes. You know, it's very likely you've got a few. I've got 3 sockets. But you do get these extremes. You will have some people who have none. You will have some people who like 10. And the difference between that is literally 750 onto whatever is your best secondary stat. That's a significant boost. This is far, far worse because these legendaries are absolutely immense. I mean, if we have a look at some. Now, if we have a look at what they introduced to us at BlizzCon, so we look at these. Level 900, note. But these weren't quite right, were they? Because you had here Pauldrons of Golden Valkyrie, and you instantly look down here and you go, okay, this is for protection powers. This sounds awesome, great. But then your eyes wander here and you go, this is for feet. Why would I wear pauldrons on my feet? So they weren't quite right with it. It's like someone's rushed to do these. So whether these legendaries even exist, I don't know. Because someone could have just written these up while they're on their lunch break, thinking, oh, we need a slide for legendaries. Oh, shit. Oh, I'll just mix them up. That's possible. But if we have a look at some that have been data mined now. Now, straight away, I want you to notice that they are 940 item level. These are going to be far and away, on the as the game initially launches, far and away better than anything else you can get. Just in terms of their stats. Just that alone will make them awesome. Then we look at the abilities. So the old Retribution one here, Crown of Helheim. Avenging Wrath generates 1 holy power per second. I can tell you, if you don't know much about Rets, that would be absolutely amazing damage bonus. During our biggest damage period, we are going to be absolutely flying. This sounds absolutely ridiculous. This is incredibly powerful. Then we look at a couple of others. Soul Weave. So this is a healer cloak. Again, the stats will be incredible, but what matters is the green writing. Your heals apply Eternal Warrior for 8 seconds. If a player dies while Eternal Warrior is active, 20% of your remaining mana is consumed, but they are returned to full health. Now, there might be hidden things in here. There might be like an internal cooldown effect on it. So it might be that you can't just cast little flash heals on everyone around the raid and basically make them all immortal. And even if you could, if they all sort of died at the same time and it rips off your mana, maybe if you don't have 20%, it says 20% of remaining mana, you can 20% of 0 is still 0, isn't it? So, you know, does this mean you can just heal people, however many people you can heal in 8 seconds, basically, and keep cycling around that, do it in your group, and they're invulnerable. There must be like a time for which that effect cannot occur again, you would think. It doesn't mention it there. But there can be an internal like cooldown. You know, you've died to it, you can't now benefit from it for like another minute or something. But nonetheless, whatever, this is still incredibly powerful. The difference between having a healer with this item and not on progress, especially early progress on a difficult boss where you're expecting people to die and die early on, cannot be overstated. I mean, are you going to bench someone who's got this? No, you are not. Absolutely not. You're going to bench the one who's much better but doesn't have it. If we look at another, Grove Walkers. This is a leather tank type item. Of course, no leather wearer who gets this is going to be worried about it. Notice as well with these are bind on when picked up. So these are not BOE. We couldn't really tell. If I go back to, before we have a detailed look at that one, these ones, we couldn't really tell what was going on because they were soul-bound, so they'd already been used on a character. People were wondering, perfectly reasonable, because there's so many other things taken from Diablo, why not this? If legendaries are just going to be what epics used to be, like Starter WoD, for example, you had all these world BOE epics, and if you weren't lucky enough to get them, and of course the vast majority of people wouldn't be, if you had the gold, people would be getting them and thinking, well, I can't use it, and putting it on the auction house, just buy it on the auction house. So we didn't know if we were going to have BOE legendaries. It was definitely on the cards. Doesn't look like it, does it? Because these are definitely all bind on pickup. Of course, anything can change, but you wouldn't think so. So, for this leather wearer, the lucky leather wearer that gets this, it says agility or strength there. That's interesting. Given that it's leather, you would think agility or intellect. So I'm not sure what that's about. But again, it could just be a lot of this data mine stuff, there'd be the odd little thing that hasn't been tidied up yet. I mean, refer you back to the pauldrons that you'd wear on your feet. But while you remain stationary, deep roots seep into the ground every 3 seconds, granting you 50,000 healing every 3 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. Now, whoa. Oh, very handy. Because it's not like tanks are running around like blue-ass flies. I mean, when they need healing, I'm sure they can plant their feet and go, do you know what, I'm going to stay here for 10 seconds. Just to get a few stacks of this, get myself healed up. This is incredible, isn't it? And as I say, it's no disadvantage to even like a rogue who gets this. They're not going to mind it. Because the stats, I mean, the high item level alone means that the stats will be really awesome. Even if you're not getting much benefit from this. And you will. Anyone can benefit from this effect. Whoa! Whoa! Back to the old retribution one there. Not looking at that. Hellstone. This is the last one. You can see these, by the way. Go onto Wowhead and just look up the legendaries that you can get access to. Or go onto one of your class forums. Someone's bound to have linked them on the official forums or MMO Champion or something like that. So this particular ring, as well as the awesome stats, you have a 10% chance to ignore any damage taken. Oh my goodness. This is actually the least impressive of them, and even this is very powerful. Now, what I'd like to do, just to sort of highlight what my issue is with this. Bear in mind a couple of things. First of all, okay, if you're a casual player and you want that legendary, you can go around and farm it. Maybe it'll take you a few hours, maybe it'll take you a few weeks, maybe it'll take you a few months, I don't know. But then, pity the poor raider. I don't usually want people to feel sorry for raiders. But feel sorry for us at the start of an expansion, because we have so much to do. We've got to gear up probably 2 characters, because split runs are likely to still be a thing. Blizzard did say they're not keen on the idea of split runs. I don't think anyone really is. But they can't think of an elegant way to stop it happening. So that sounds to me like split runs are going to be a thing, so we're going to have to level up 2 characters if you want to be sort of serious about this. And then you've got to gear them up. You'll be doing the dungeons. Remember, the dungeons are not like heroic dungeons now where you just blast through them, get your gear from them done, because they get harder and you can get better and better gear. So you can actually spend all your life in the dungeons, in theory. So at what point do you decide that you're better off farming for the legendary, which is super important, but much lower chance of getting it? It's like, what do you go with? Go to dungeons, do some dungeons where you've got a much better chance of lesser gear, but still upgrade gear. Or go and farm boars, where you've got a tiny chance of something that is super awesome and is going to keep you off the bench. And just to highlight the difference here, what I want you to do is just look at some of the quality of these legends. Now imagine there isn't just one for each spec. There are multiple that are useful. I mean, this ring could be used by anyone. Okay, that helm, Retribution Paladin only. This could be used by any leather user. There's nothing that says, even though it's going to be clearly better for tanks, there's nothing about it that says this is for tanks. This cloak, okay. Assuming you can't use it on yourself, because otherwise, even as a Retribution Paladin, I would go, well, I can heal. I'll just heal myself every 8 seconds and make myself immortal. We assume, but we don't know that. Maybe it can work on yourself, in which case even that's useful for anyone with a heal. of any kind? Does it even include a... Well, whatever. I do not even know. But yeah, there are several of these that you could potentially acquire. So picture yourself and split your soul in two, like Varian. So there's two of you. One of you has got all these legendaries. One of you doesn't have any of them. Imagine the relative difference in power between you two. The same player, same skills, the same rest of gear. But one's got all the legendaries, one hasn't. And what is that going to do to your effectiveness in a raid? I'll leave you with that one. Going to leave you with that. As I say, next one I want to do, I want to have a good look at all the new abilities and old abilities that may have changed, and the talent trees. Not a comprehensive look at all of them. I just want to sort of do a few little comparisons, mostly focusing on non sort of damage and healing type things, so sort of utility. I want to have a little look at for the end of this week or next weekend. But until then, I'll see you later.